May Day, also known as Workers' Day or International Workers' Day, is celebrated in several countries around the world, especially in Europe. The day honors the struggles and achievements of labor movements fighting for workers' rights. In some countries, it's a public holiday similar to Labor Day in the US. May Day also has more ancient origins as a pagan festival marking the arrival of spring. But the world of work has evolved over time around the world, especially with the advent of information and communication technology. Now, to discuss this a bit more further, especially when it comes to work trends around the world, we are now joined by Minki Mazibuko-Thulo. She is the Deputy Chairperson for the ICT Sector, entrepreneur, business growth coach and territory advisor for global businesses. Minki, thank you so much for joining us here on the late edition. As we celebrate or mark May Day today, one would ask that what does a day like this mean, especially for those who have changed their mode of work? One would say when you draw back to COVID-19, we learned new ways of working, and the big tagline of working from home now started to exist even in countries like South Africa.
Absolutely. Hi, Mbali. Thanks for having me. I think we've had a lot to learn in the context of operating in a global market. And I'm looking forward to have these engagements with you. I've had almost about 10 years working with global, well, I've had almost 20 years working with global markets, but have had 5 years being a territory advisor for global companies that are trying to enter the South African market, and also being able to work with local companies in trying to assist them in how they compete and align themselves with this new globalization of the new way of doing business.
Minki, if you could just pull your mic from the back and just bring it a bit forward. We were losing you there for a moment. And if you could just tell us, in this kind of working environment, what are the certain struggles faced by businesses who have moved online, who no longer have shops, who no longer have a physical address? If you could just give us a bit of more insight there. What struggles have you come across as workers working and relying on ICT?
Bali, firstly, let me check if you can hear me. Can you hear me clearly now?
I can hear you clearly.
Okay, great. I don't see it as a struggle. I see it as an opportunity. I have had the privilege with working with South African multinationals. And I think I was one of the, I guess maybe seen as a rebel at the time when I worked with companies owned by the likes of Strive Masiwa, which is one of South Africa's billionaires, and at the time being challenged on why I was changing the models in my own divisions and my own business divisions and how I was doing things. And so for me, I think this has been long coming. It's just that maybe because of the territory we're in, we took much longer to adapt to the global trends. And I think it is not a challenge, but rather an opportunity. Yes, of course, it's a challenge when it comes to us being able to see ourselves as competitors in a global market versus in a domestic market. But when it comes to building efficiencies for businesses, it's certainly an opportunity.
And would you say that South Africa is sort of getting there and we are now adapting to global trends?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that I do, I'm a South African. I reside in Johannesburg, a Free State girl residing in Johannesburg. But I work with clients and businesses across the world. And I do that sitting comfortably in Johannesburg. So it's for me, it's when the cliche saying that says adapt or be swallowed, it's exactly that.
And Minki, one would ask, how possible can this be done in other parts of the country? Because you say that you're a Free State girl who works in Johannesburg, so you have access to things like fiber, maybe you have an inverter for load shedding, and you have generators and so forth. Can this be done anywhere in the country, or the fact that you stay in a metro municipality that is beneficial to you?
So let me say this. One of the things that I'm very passionate about is about industry development. So even in my own business, I say I am an industry developer, and fortunately I'm an industry developer within the ICT sector, which cuts across all the key economical drivers of our country, right? So yes, just in the next 2 days, I'll be back in my hometown in Bloemfontein at the Industrial Entrepreneurship Week, where we're going to be talking about with entrepreneurs and how for them to align themselves or start seeing themselves as participant of global business in the global business market. And so there isn't. Firstly, let's appreciate that some of the crises we have in the country have a lot of dependency in policy, in the government entities that govern us. However, the natural space for entrepreneurs is to find innovative solutions. And so sometimes we have to come together and learn from each other and learn on how to leverage from each other to overcome the challenges that we have. And that said, I don't necessarily think that I am privileged by being in Johannesburg for me to be able to interact with the global market. I think it's a mindset, it's an intention, it's about local business, understanding that the business environment has shifted to a global market, and there is multiple business partners globally that are trying to lend a hand in finding solutions for Africa as a territory that seemed to be the next frontier of the global market.
And Minki, coming to something that affects many South Africans, it actually affects most of us. How has load shedding impacted you and your business? One would say that, we've spoken to so many people, those who run online classes for clients overseas, and they've spoken about how they've lost so much money in terms of, not getting the proper access to electricity. How would you say that has affected you?
So firstly, let me put it in context. Because I work with global markets and I'm a territory advisor for international companies that are trying to enter the African market and do business in Africa, and they often ask me these complexities. The one thing that we must understand is that, one, I have to deal with countries that operate for different time zones, and I have to manage load shedding in the different contexts of the various time zones. But how I've done it is that I've been able to, one, whether I have an inverter or I don't have an inverter, so I don't want to sound privileged, whether I have an inverter or not, there are literally working spaces that are able to that entrepreneurs can tap into, right? And in that context, you have working spaces that have 24-hour generator supported or alternative energy supported offices that operate 24 hours.
All right. Thank you so much, Minki. That is Minki Mazibuko, just giving us a bit of more insight there when it comes to her business and working in the ICT space, and just, how the world has changed and how South Africa is now on board with that, saying that so many people are now running their own businesses from home and how lucrative that has become for many of them. Of course, giving us a bit of more insight there. Let's take a quick ad break.